We are officially halfway through the fantasy football regular season with 7 weeks behind us. And just like we all expected, the Patriots have a new breakout running back, and his name is Terrell Jennings. This is Stat Chasing.
Pat Fryer Helmuth.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar. Alpha play chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally piss boys. You're right.
Drico has decided he cannot show his face on camera due to the TreVeyon Henderson debacle that's happening in New England. Drico has decided it's best if he just joins us voice only. So you're going to have to put up with only my face, but both of our voices, because Drico is here to help me in stat chasing for week 7.
Yeah, what's weird is I see that I'm on the camera. So people in the chat, let me know if I'm a black box to you. Maybe I'm a black box, but even if you can still see me. But just imagine that it's a Zoom call. I'm phoning it in. I didn't get dressed today. I'm in my PJs, and I have a Zoom meeting.
You know what I just realized? Since you are typically the one who presents the charts, I hope that there's no issue with that. Why don't you try to present the charts here, and we'll see if that works. All right, the charts work great, so at least we've got that going for us.
I see myself on the screen, so it's so frustrating that if it's not working.
It might just be me. Maybe the chat will come to our rescue shortly and tell me that it's only on my end that you are a black box. But we can go ahead and dive into this quarterback chart. We've got a lot to cover today. A lot of moving pieces here in week 7. I guess I'll go ahead and kick us off. I feel like we're halfway through the fantasy regular season at this point, so it seems like a good check-in spot. Who would you have as your top 5 fantasy quarterbacks? You know, you're going into a matchup, and these are the guys you would most like to have on your lineup, you know, regardless of format, be it a weekly contest or a best ball team or a season long. Who are your top 5 fantasy quarterbacks?
So I see your list and I see your list. So I'm going to give my list with the benefit of knowing yours and just pick and choose what I like. The ones from yours that I like Mahomes. I like May. I like Baker. I think I'd put Jalen Hurts in there for the floor. I think if it weren't for the injury, I'd probably have Lamar as well. And maybe Dak would be up there as well. And I think I think that's where I'm at.
Okay, yeah. Where we differ is I have Dak squarely in there. I also have Justin Herbert in those top 5. And I do want to talk a little bit more about him. So my 5 were Mahomes, Drake May, Baker Mayfield, Justin Herbert, and Dak, with honorable mentions for Josh Allen and Lamar. For Hurts, I think that if you knew that the Eagles were going to pass the ball each week, then he's certainly in there. But I just think there's too much volatility with that offense. I don't really trust that they are going to be as pass-friendly as the result that you got this week. They actually weren't even very pass friendly this week. If you watch the game in the first half,
I like Hurts. You don't need it to be that pass friendly. And even in weeks where they don't pass at all, you still get those push touchdowns. Like I think the floor is really, really good, and the ceiling is very, very strong too.
The floor is good. We haven't really accessed the ceiling much at all. And I mean, even this week where he had a great, passing result. In the first half, he really didn't have much at all. I think they had 2 first downs from passing in the whole first half. It really wasn't a lot going. He gets the deep, super efficient passing with the deep strike to Devonta Smith and then the long touchdown to A.J. Brown. So, they string together a good game from the box score standpoint, but I was less convinced there. The one that I'm pretty interested in going forward, we really talked this guy up at the start of the season in Justin Herbert, but then
just before you move on from Jalen Hurts, I'm glad you say we haven't accessed the ceiling yet, because he's number 2 in fantasy points scored.
Right. It's not coming in the way of ceiling games. Like, he's not putting up 30 points. It's just, he's getting consistently 20.
Sounds like a top 5 fantasy quarterback to me.
Yeah, I think, like, I think I'd probably take Dak and Mahomes straight up over him, which sounds weird. I'd certainly take Drake May straight up over him. Like, those sound
guys
weird,
I had in my
but
top 5 too. I think Justin Herbert seems way less defendable to me, given their offensive line issues and the
I think
volatility.
What I wanted to talk about with Herbert is I think we are literally watching the start of a change right now. Their offensive line, they should get Joe Alt back next week. He was questionable to go this week. He was potentially going to play this week. He should be back next week. Their running game is just like dead. The running game wasn't good prior to the Hampton injury. Like, Amari and Hampton wasn't out there tearing it up, or posting wildly efficient numbers or anything. He finally had a breakout game after a lot of, games where the run game for the Chargers is underwhelming. He has a good game. They get more offensive line injuries. The run game has just not been great. They flash against Miami, but again, everyone is running against Miami for tons and tons of yards and efficiency. So I think what we're seeing from the Chargers is the run game is not going to be very good going forward. They are getting back Joe Alt. They should be able to pass a little bit more. And we just see Herbert go out there and throw for 420 yards and spread it around, where Oronde Gadsden has a monster day. Keenan Allen has a huge day. And we've seen all these receivers kind of trade off, where it just seems like it's whoever Herbert can get it to in that week is, going to be the producer for fantasy. So I feel pretty good about this passing attack being relatively resilient, where they have lots of ways that Herbert can get there. And I think that we're going to see the shift more towards how the Chargers were at the start of the season, where they had extremely high PROE. I think that's going to be the norm going forward, where over the last, couple weeks prior to this, they were closer to neutral. They were still positive PROE. But I think we're going to see that increase going forward here for Herbert.
Yeah, I mean, if the question was who's going to have the most passing production, for sure Herbert, for sure, no doubt. Maybe we're splitting hairs. We might not be actually that far off on between Hurts and Herbert. Maybe you have him like 8 or something, and I have him at 4. I don't know. The other one that we haven't talked about is the number 6 fantasy quarterback is Daniel Jones, and he's obviously having a very efficient year, where he's passing for a lot. He's passing efficiently. He's getting red zone rush attempts. He's getting rushing touch. Has he scored a rushing touchdown yet?
Daniel Jones?
Oh, yeah. Rushing touchdowns. Out of 11 attempts in the red zone. I guess the question is does he turn into a pumpkin? That's kind of what's keeping him out of our top 5, right?
So the thing for Daniel Jones that's concerning to me, I certainly have him in there as an honorable mention. But the thing that's concerning is his pressure to sack ratio is the lowest it's ever been by a wide margin in his entire career, even when he was having decent seasons previously. Like, I'm sure, you take the worst of him, of course it's going to look a lot better now. But even in his best seasons previously, his pressure to sack ratio was much worse historically than it is this year. I think a big chunk of that is the system that he's operating in, and he understands his job, and he's doing a good job not turning pressures into sacks. I also think that that's going to regress a little bit. It would be such a significant departure from who he has been as a quarterback historically that there's almost certainly going to be some regression there, where some of those plays where he's pressured and it hasn't turned into a sack, some of that is just good fortune. A lot of it is good play, but some of it is just he did not see the pressure. He gets the ball out literally one beat before taking a hit. And if you're one beat late, that's a sack. And a big part of that is the skill of the passer and knowing, having that good internal clock. I just think that's the piece of Jones' profile that looks the most fragile to me. And so that's where I could see him regressing a little bit. But I don't think it knocks him out of like top fantasy quarterback contention. He's just not in the top 5 for me. But he'd be like behind Hurts and Allen and Lamar for me, but ahead of like that next tier.
Right
after that, I think it's like a pretty clear
one thing I guess to his favor, his time to throw is pretty in line with his career average. So it's not like he's getting the ball that way faster because stuff is just being schemed up for him, and the defenses are going to now take that away. You're saying that he's had some close calls, and there's some noise or volatility in his low sack where he's only taken 6 so far this year. You think maybe he'll take 10 in the next 7 games or like something like that. Yeah,
it's just he would have to run
destroy drives. You take 4 good drives away from a quarterback. That's a lot of points.
He would have to run so good to keep his pressure to sack ratio where it is compared to where it's been historically. Like I'll pull up the numbers because I was looking at it earlier today.
So his career average is 19.2%, and he's sitting at 7.3% so far this year. I guess my what I wonder is, so obviously we saw Saquon leave the Giants and put up the best year of his career, one of the best years ever, and running backs obviously heavily dependent on offensive line. Do you think? And I guess pressure to sack is explicitly a quarterback stat because it's what percentage of pressures are turning into sacks. Do you like? I guess it is there a case to be made though for the offensive line being better? Because like he's getting the ball out in the same amount of time. That's the part that I'm getting tripped up on.
Yeah, I mean there are still lurking variables there though. Like if you like, let me paint you a picture. There's 2 offenses. They're 2 totally different teams, 2 totally different offensive lines, 2 totally different schemes. One of the offenses, both offenses have the same time to throw, right? They're having the same pressure rate. But here's the difference. One offense has receivers that are separating and the play designs are very intentional. So the quarterback has very simple reads to progress through, where when you get to that point in your internal clock and you've got to cut it loose, you know exactly where it needs to go. And your guy's either open or he's not. It's a very clear cut decision. And then you have the other offense over here where the plays aren't designed as well. The receivers aren't as clearly open. It's taking a little bit more processing and reading. And then, maybe the quarterback doesn't trust his receivers as much because they're not as open. And so it's just that, like all the numbers that you're citing, like the pressure rate, the pressure to sack rate, the time to throw, all that can be consistent across 2 teams. And you can still get wildly different results simply because of these lurking variables that we're not accounting for in these specific stats. And so I just don't want to say, oh, well, Daniel Jones, 7.3% pressure to sack ratio. Here's his last 3 seasons, 20%, 31%, 18%. This is less than half the pressure to sack ratio he's had in his very best seasons. It just isn't a thing that will keep happening.
What you described just before, Dan, is like, hey, there's variables that can kind of account for that, and that aren't quite accounted for in these numbers, which is maybe he's just in a much better designed offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
But I certainly think that there's almost no way for him to keep a 7.3% pressure and sack ratio, like, near best in the league, when his previous career low is 15.7. That's just not I will gladly take action on his pressure to sack ratio being higher than 7.3 by the end of the season.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. So it's not a case that we're saying, hey, he's going to finish at 15% or 20%. We're not saying he's going to finish close to his career average. Just like he's going to take a couple more sacks in the next couple of games than he otherwise or than he has in the previous 7.
Yeah, than what he's currently pacing for. Yeah, because I mean, currently he's best in the league, and I would just expect that to be something where you see a little bit of regression, especially when you consider like the teams that he's faced. Like, you have a couple really strong pass rush teams in there. Like, you have the Rams in there, and against the Rams, like, that's his highest sack game on the season. Oh, what do you know? He took 2 sacks against the Rams. So. But otherwise, you get Vegas, you get the Titans, you get the Dolphins. Like, there's just he's not going up against, like, he hasn't played Houston. He's going to play Houston twice, by the way. And we talk about how good Sam Darnold has been so far this season, and he just went up against the Houston defense and looked a lot more mortal because Houston is good on defense. And so I just think that as Daniel Jones progresses through this season, that is a really clear regression spot.
So put differently, on a more macro level, the matchups for the Colts in the first 7 games have been a lot of cupcakes. Where you've gotten the Dolphins, you've got the Titans, you've got the Raiders. And then who did they play last week? They played the Chargers.
Chargers last
which
week.
Not a particularly challenging matchup for an offense either. So like they've had an easy, but they have a tougher schedule going forward. You're saying with the Texans twice.
Yeah, I mean, just anything's going to be harder than the schedule that he's gotten so far. He had Denver, which was a real defense. He had the Rams, which was a real defense. And other than that, there really have not been very many tests for this Colts offense. So,
okay, so that's probably and it's my fault for taking us down that rabbit hole. It wasn't even on our show notes, but took us down the Daniel Jones rabbit hole. I did. The next item we had were the benchings. So we had Justin Fields, where I guess this is our time to take potentially a short-lived victory lap, where people said there's no way he can get benched, and it's like, well, a team can't really go 0-7, and their quarterback not getting hot water, and I guess lo and behold. He gets benched.
Yeah, it's almost comical, like how quickly he got benched. I think the discussion around him not being benchable was like back in week 5, and now here we are in week 7, and he's benched for Tyrod. So here's the problem. I can't remember if we talked about this on the show or not, but Pat and I were talking about Fields getting benched for Tyrod, and it doesn't.
By the way,
Tyrod. It doesn't really save the Jets or do anything, helpful for them. They're still going to lose these games. It's not like Tyrod is out there playing super well. He'll be able to.
Oh, Tyrod is playing like dog shit.
Yeah, he'll be able to execute.
That's why I said this could be a short-lived victory lap. Like the Tyrod Taylor New York Jets 2.0 era. I put the over under on that at like 1.5 games.
Yeah,
maybe I'm being kind there.
Yeah, I think that maybe they try and scheme the offense around him a little bit more with a full week of him as the starter and try and just do some like stuff where it's going to be a little bit more in his wheelhouse. But I don't know, man. They haven't even been able to scheme stuff up that's in Justin Fields' wheelhouse. So who knows what they're doing. I don't think that Tyrod Taylor is very productive for what the Jets need to do as a franchise. Like, I guess if they're saying, hey, in no uncertain terms is Justin Fields coming back for us next year, but neither is Tyrod Taylor. Like, and it's not like you have much that you're trying to evaluate on offense where like, oh my gosh, Fields is so dysfunctional. He's preventing us from evaluating these other players that we need to learn something about. Like, I don't think that's the case either. So to me, it's just like you're floundering, you're flailing and hoping that you're throwing shit at the wall and hoping something sticks here because your season's over. You're not going to the playoffs. So like, what are you doing? So I think the Tyrod Taylor stuff is just like the latest, panic that the Jets.
Yeah, they're throwing a bowl of cereal at the wall, maybe a bowl of spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. Like they're like, listen, we're sucking right now. I got to do something.
Yeah,
and that something was Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think we're on the same page where that's not going to last.
Yeah, I don't even think we need to spend very much energy on that one. The other one who gets benched is Bryce Young. Now, I've heard reports this is a very, very real, very serious, extremely ouchy high ankle sprain for Bryce Young. It is so real, guys. Like, you don't even know how real this injury was. It definitely wasn't because he's played bad. It was definitely a real injury. Don't put in the paper that they benched him because he's been playing bad. I mean, to me, this seems like one of the themes of this season where teams have realized we're allowed to move on from our quarterbacks if they're stinking. But it's also bad for us as a team to bench a player because if you outright bench a player, you're reducing their value in the eyes of the league. Like maybe you could trade this guy down the road for something. So I feel like that's what we're getting with you get JJ McCarthy with super, super real injury guys. Like, trust us, he's really injured. It's going to take a while. He's benched, and you have Carson Wentz who's dealing with a shoulder injury and still playing over JJ McCarthy, who injured his ankle over a month ago. So you get that same thing here with Bryce Young. You also get Kyler who, very real foot injury. His seems like a little bit more real than Bryce Young's.
Yeah, I think his is a real injury.
But it's also
they
like
actually want him to play over Jacoby Brissett.
But I think it's at least in the same family of, hey, beneficial injury that is allowing us to get away from this guy and play someone else at quarterback. And you also might expect them to let the backup ride a little bit longer if they're having success. So basically this is like it's like an NFL team free look. It's like how FFPC gives you the free look going into week 1. This is NFL team free look where you don't have to tell anybody that you're actually benching your starter because they're playing like shit. You just bench them and you make up an injury, or they get a legitimate injury, but it's one that they otherwise would have played through. Like Patrick Mahomes is playing through all of these injuries.
Right.
Dak Prescott's playing through all of these injuries. And you see quarterbacks do this, by the way. Like Carson Wentz is playing through a shoulder injury that would have benched him if he were playing worse, which is funny to even say because he was playing terrible this week. But so you get all these guys where it's like this overt benching in Fields or like these hush benchings in Bryce Young and Kyler and JJ McCarthy. So I wanted to ask you, of these guys who have all been benched, who do we see come back and start for their team first?
Kyler, for sure, I think.
Okay.
I think Kyler is easily the guy who's coming back. I think it's going to be Kyler, then Bryce Young, then JJ.
Wow. So when do you think we see JJ McCarthy then? Because I think Bryce Young, they said high ankle sprain. I know quarterbacks like Mahomes played 1 week after a high ankle. So
yeah,
but I think Bryce
Young, if it's an actual honest to God, high ankle sprain, then it's like 4 weeks, just 4 to 6 weeks. If it's like a boo-boo and they just want to see what they have in Andy Dalton, then he's probably 2 Andy Dalton games away from
I like how you put that, because I was going through the exercise in my head of, well, and how long can Andy Dalton hold on to it? And you framing it as 2 Andy Dalton games away, it was very helpful. I think that so here's the problem with Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is bad in that he's not like going to go out there and win the game by himself, but he's also better than Kyler from he makes the players catching passes on your offense more impactful, like Marvin Harrison.
Brissett is playing out of his mind
right now.
I think that's the 2 pieces. Yeah, he's the last 2 games he's played out of his mind.
But they've
also ran 70 plays a game for 2 weeks straight. So that's a lot. That they ran second most plays of any offense in the last 2 weeks. So that's a big part of the production. But some of that could just be him keeping them on the field on third down converting.
Right. We did see extended Jacoby Brissett play last year though for the Patriots, and it was terrible. Now, I don't know how much of that was the Patriots, because they were atrocious last year too. But I don't know.
He's going to turn back into a pumpkin, like no doubt. I think it's still the correct framing in that the Jacoby Brissett efficiency is outstanding.
Yeah.
It's not that he's just playing like at a decent level, and decent looks so much better than Kyler Murray. No, he's playing really, really well. That is part of the difference in part of what's causing the difference to be so stark is him playing as well.
Yeah, that's well put. I mean, you can see where he's sitting here on the chart. He's right around 8 adjusted yards per attempt. That's in line with Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, Pat Mahomes. Like, you're not wrong. He's been playing well these last couple games. And then the last question I have about all these benched quarterbacks, of all of them who were benched, do you believe that any of them can come back to being fantasy relevant or being a quarterback where their teams are going to be happy to start them in 2026? Or is this just the beginning of the end for all of these guys?
So probably the one with the most amount of rope is Kyler Murray. But
really,
I think so. I mean, JJ McCarthy has in the 2026 JJ McCarthy, because it's his second year in the league, or third year in the league, I guess. That has an argument, but he's just been genuinely terrible, like truly bad. And I think they've kind of realized that. So like he has the most where he has to just like significantly improve. Like, and I guess I don't see how that happens in the NFL. Like how that level, the level of improvement that's needed. I think the Cardinals, they have so much money in Kyler. He's been starting for them for so long. I think that's like kind of hard to move on from, but it depends. It depends on the second half of the year. Like if he's just continuing to get outplayed by Jacoby Brissett, then that's a different story. I'm not as fully bought into that being like what's going to happen. Like I know he like to me, Kyler Murray is like a flawed quarterback who does have some like good skills. Like he is a good playmaker, and he, like I said, he does make plays. But then there's another part of my head where it's like, is it like the Russell Wilson trajectory, where like offenses are set up to stop that kind of quarterback, and not that he's throwing moon balls, but he like needs to scramble to make plays. Is that what? And maybe he's getting older now. I don't. It's. I'm not as married to the idea that he's like terrible. And we're just going to see terrible play. I guess for Kyler, I need to see it a little bit more before I know like he's like Bryce Young bad.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's like it's pretty clear on Kyler that like it's not going to be enough to win you a championship or anything like that. Where there's a lot of guys where they are good enough to just run the offense around him. Like you can, if you got all the pieces around him, like it could work. But I feel like with Kyler, we're kind of like at the end of the line here where it's like, this isn't going to work going forward. And I feel like the Cardinals are getting close to there. My answer was going to be JJ McCarthy purely from he's got the small sample size of all these guys. Like it could easily just be something where we watched a couple of his worst games. You know, this is the worst he's going to be, and he bounces back from there. I don't think he's going to be very good. You know, if you made me bet money on it, I would say the most likely outcome is he stinks and he's not a starter in the league in 2 years. But he's the one where I think the probability is the highest that of all of these guys, he bounces back.
The excuse you make for him is that he just had his child born. And maybe he was staying up too late or he's doing too much, like waking up with the baby. Yeah. That feels pretty weak to me as a new father. Like I wouldn't accept it for myself in my own job. Not that there's a comparison between me and
no sympathy from Drico. Damn. It's cold-blooded.
But how do I say it? But like that's the most thing that like of something that widens the range of outcomes. Of like maybe he is actually just much better than that. It's a possibility.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I think we've spent enough time on the bench guys that we're saying are likely not relevant anymore. I did want to talk about some other ugly quarterback play though. These are guys that I think either deserve to be benched or they definitely should be benched in your fantasy leagues. My list, not exhaustive, but these guys all have been playing bad and had bad games here in week 7. Trevor Lawrence just looked terrible per usual. Like I've had enough of the Trevor Lawrence experience. We can just be done with that one. Tua, I mean, sure, it was a terrible weather game, but he's bad enough that he gets benched in this game. Bo Nix, I know that we may have some people that are very upset about me saying that Bo Nix played bad after he drops a 40 burger for fantasy, but he was atrocious in this game. Like he didn't get a ton of help from his receivers. There were lots of drops, but he was so bad to start this game. Like I thought Bo Nix was deserving of being benched. At the half, I was like, I wonder if they'll make a change at halftime because it was that bad. Geno also been pretty terrible. I mean, I don't know. The Raiders seemed like dead in the water before the half. It seemed like it was just like the time to phone it in for the Raiders. And then Cam Ward just puts together one decent drive, and it's not even really a drive. It's puts together one really sick throw to Chimere Dike. And then after that, just puts up one of the most Cam Ward games that you're going to see. It was bad. If you want the Cam Ward experience, though, you go back and watch this game. This is everything you need to know about Cam Ward, all encapsulated in one game, where it's like, holy shit, what a ball to Chimere Dike. Like, huge arm talent. And then after that, it's like, oh, that was a terrible throw. Oh, God, what was that? Wait, why are you fumbling? Why did you just drop the ball for no explicable reason? Oh my God, it's a scoop and score. Like it's just the thing that we had joked about a lot when we were doing rankings this offseason is so many of the like film grinders and the ball knowers, the prospect evaluators out there would always describe Cam Ward. He's so calm in the pocket. gosh, he's just so calm. He really, nothing rattles him. And my take was that, yeah, because he doesn't know what the fuck he's looking. He doesn't know to be terrified. Like he was like a deer in the headlights. Like he's just, wow, what a calm deer standing in the middle of the road as I barrel towards it at 60 miles an hour, about to end its life. That's what the Cam Ward experience feels like for me. Like what a calm deer standing in my headlights. But anyway, do you have anything to add about these should be benched candidates?
No, I don't think so. I'm just looking at your list again. I mean, I think you're saying Bo Nix should be benched for reality. I don't think he's going to be benched for reality. I think
the offense is super
be
limited, man. Have you caught a full Broncos game from cover to cover?
Have I? No.
Because they don't. They're running like a Mickey Mouse offense. It's not like a full big boy offense. It's like, all right, it's time to roll Bo Nix out.
Offense?
I mean, like Drew Brees ran like a big boy offense, like he's able to stand there in the pocket and progress through his reads. Like, dude, what they're doing with Bo Nix is like, all right, everything is okay, quick, roll out of the pocket. We're going to boot you. Okay, we're going to quick throw behind the line of scrimmage. Okay, now we're going to do a little swing pass behind the line of scrimmage. There's just like, and then when he is actually passing downfield, like the play that set up the game-winning field goal, he's not even throwing it to Marvin Mims on that play, by the way. He's throwing it to Cortland Sutton. Go watch that play again. The play that is like oh my gosh, Bo Nix led the Broncos down to win the game. What a comeback. Wasn't even who he was throwing to. It was an accident. He accidentally completes the pass, like to not his target. And there's multiple plays like that in this game where you get the deflected touchdown. Like there's just a lot where this game, obviously the box.
Right. I get that he might not be very, I'm not arguing that he's like a fantastic player. I don't think that a team that is like winning with a quarterback on their rookie contract, like that to me, those aren't like the fundamentals that lead to a quarterback benching.
No, I don't think he's actually in danger of getting benched, but I will tell you if he put together
that's the only thing I'm pushing back on.
Yeah, if he put together another game that looked like the first 3 quarters of this game against the Giants, they would have to have a come to Jesus talk. Like it was that atrocious. It was really, really bad. The last quarterback note that I had here, I thought Caleb looked pretty bad against the Saints here. I put in the notes that a lot of his numbers are just being kept afloat from the game against the Cowboys. He only has one other multi-touchdown game other than the Cowboys game. All other games are either 0 or 1 touchdown. He only has 2 games with more than 20 completions. And then he's also near the very top as far as turnover-worthy plays. I think he's 7th in the league in turnover-worthy plays. In pressure to sack rate, he's in the bottom half of the league. It's not great. He's sitting at a 15% pressure to sack rate.
That's pretty close to average.
Right around like Spencer Rattler. That
is close to average though.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of these guys are around 15%.
Yeah,
like,
it's
in between 12 to 18% is like.
Yeah, I would just say I think a lot more of that is Caleb fault than I think that he is not getting pressured anywhere near as much as these other guys are getting pressured because his time to throw is the highest in the league. It's 3.23 seconds.
He's also he's one of those guys who their style is it leads to a higher time to throw.
Yeah, those guys that have that higher time to throw, like do good stuff with it, and Caleb is not really. Like all that it's leading to for Caleb is yes, he's got that higher ADOT that's typical with those guys that have the higher time to throw. For example, like Jalen Hurts, second highest time to throw in the league. right there with Caleb, 9.28 versus 8.6. Justin Fields, Drake May, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, all those guys in that same ballpark. The big difference is Caleb has like double the turnover worthy play rate that these other guys do. And so I don't know, for me, and when you look at the game by game too, like it's really not great. For example, pressure to sack rate artificially depressed by Dallas, where he has 0% pressure to sack rate. Don't even know if he's at all pressured in that game. But then he's got other games where against Detroit, 40% pressure to sack rate. Against Washington, who just showed us they had absolutely no defense against the Cowboys, like looked terrible, 21% pressure to sack rate. So, and then
I feel like what you're saying is, and it's where it comes to the pressure to sack. If you ignore his best one and then focus on his two worst, he's really bad. Like,
I mean, what if I just focus on his other 6? Like, like just the one where he gets the freebie against the defense du jour to target in the league. Like every other game.
Other than the 40 and the 21, he's got 10%, 10%, 7.7%, and then Dallas is that's the one where I think he didn't take a sack. So like I feel like the 15% is like that's pretty representative of what an average should be. Like I don't feel like it's like Dallas is like the outlier, and then those other two are like no, those are the true.
I definitely feel like Dallas is the outlier, given that he's got like a 50% higher yards per attempt,
but then
and 4 touchdowns.
Is the 40%.
Yeah, I don't know. I would expect that as the season goes on, he's going to be a lot closer to like the 20% pressure to sack rate than he is the 15% pressure to sack rate. I would expect that to be headed in the wrong direction. He still has to play the Packers twice. I think that that's not going to go well for him. He's going to play the Vikings again, where I would expect that to also not be a friendly matchup for him in that regard. He's a downfield passer that doesn't actually turn in the big time throws at the rate that you would need for it to be worth it, given the turnover worthy plays. It's just like, it's like the bad side of being a gunslinger. I don't know. I'm like thoroughly unimpressed so far. Like, for example, if you have a season long league, would you rather have Caleb Williams going forward, or do you want Mac Jones?
Caleb Williams.
I think I'm Mac Jones, like straight up. I would just start Mac Jones over Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think where I disagree is you do get decent rushing from Caleb Williams. You don't have the prospect of Brock Purdy coming in.
He hasn't really been rushed. He only rushed like the first 2 weeks, I want to say, though. Other than that, it really hasn't been much. It really was just the first 2 weeks. Otherwise, he's totaled 21 rushing yards over the last 4 games. So he's averaging 5 rushing yards a game.
That's a fair comment, but then again, I don't think it's correct to say, hey, let's take out the good ones.
I mean, that's including the Dallas. I mean, really, all of his rushing production came in week 1 against Minnesota, where I would assume that a big part of that was, their high blitz rate, high pressure rate, and he's using that to get out of the pocket. And that's, not to take anything away from him. Like, good, that's what you should do. Like don't stand in there and take the sacks. That's what you would want from him. And he did play good in that first week until he melted down at the end of the game. But yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty underwhelmed there. I just think where he sits on the chart currently, I would expect his adjusted yards per attempt to fall a little bit. I basically, if you want me to summarize it, Caleb Williams is going to be a bottom left quadrant quarterback by the end of the season. And I feel pretty good about that.
Okay. I think that he's probably a little bit below average in terms of like NFL starter quality. But they do have the offense has been running pretty good, pretty strong. And his profile, even if he's not, maybe he's the Charmander of the archetype, but his profile is good. Where he's like you're saying, he's a good slinger. So like that is going to lead to fantasy points. Like, I don't want to lose sight of that. Even if he's not like at one of the top NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the attempts continue to trend down like they have been because they seem like they feel pretty good about their run game. Swift has been doing well lately. They're getting Monangai more involved. And I think it's going to just kind of change into a hide Caleb, like get this. I think the offense is going to end up looking a lot more like the, low pass attempt Lions when they were not passing as much and they were leaning on the run game. I think they were just trying to find their identity early in the season. But like
the Saints, they had 26 pass attempts. Watched Commanders 29, Vegas 37. Like that's just not striking me as a hide the quarterback offense. Like 26 when you kind of have the game well in control for long stretches of it. Like I don't know. That doesn't strike me as a hide the quarterback offense.
I mean, did they have it well in control for the majority of the game? It was reasonably close. Like the Saints,
there were stretches where there was reasonably close. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we've probably spent enough time on the quarterback chart. We're 45 minutes in. Let's move on to running backs here.
All right. So your first top 5 running backs by snaps and usage. Top 5 for each week given a neutral. So your question is like of the Jonathan Taylor, CMC, Achan, Bijan, and then Javonte. Is that the top 5? I think it is.
I think there's one we've got to insert there, but otherwise I think that's it. I think Gibbs is the only one where
true.
Without the elite role, he's got the crazy efficiency. To the point where I've got my last, one of my final eliminator teams that's trying to survive. It's a crazy team. It has CMC, JT, JSN, Trey McBride. Like it's got, it's so stacked. I put up a ton of points this week. I'm thinking I'm safe. I'm going into Monday night. All I'm fading is Gibbs. I just need Gibbs to score under 28 or something like that. And gosh darn it, he went out there and did it and buried that super team of mine. So that was the last eliminator team of mine, just totally dead and buried, courtesy of Jahmyr Gibbs, who definitely belongs in that upper echelon. But other than Gibbs, I do think it's kind of funny where running back really does just come down to, hey, do you get all the volume? If so, you're the best fantasy running back.
And for Javonte as well, what's really helping him is the Cowboys' offense is so good.
The offense is insane. He gets a shot at the touchdown every week.
He's getting inside the 5 carry. He's getting like goal line carries. He's getting like heavily targeted. 10 targets in the last 2 weeks.
He had a really good run this week too. Like we need to capitulate on Javonte Williams. I know we probably already have, but man, that
in our minds we did. I don't know if we like actually acknowledged it.
No, yeah, he's just straight up been good this year. Quite unfortunate for people who didn't draft like any Javonte Williams. So that's unfortunate. But there's only so many years where a guy can look like the worst running back in the league, and you keep clicking him. So The next note I had on running backs, a guy who is up there as far as his total snaps and usage. You can actually see he's got the third longest bar on the chart. That's Saquon Barkley. He is doing quite a bit of pass blocking out there. But Saquon's efficiency has just gone in the absolute toilet this season. And in my notes, I titled this the New York Giantsification of the Philadelphia Eagles, Saquon Barkley, because this is the Saquon that we got when he was with the Giants, like three yards a carry, not super involved in the passing game. When he was putting up good fantasy scores this season, it was on the back of being involved in the passing game, getting more receiving work. But I think that's fragile. We saw last year he's not going to be super involved there. I don't think it's going to be something where you can bank on it every single week going forward. They get Bigsby involved in the first quarter of this game, so I don't know, but the efficiency just hasn't been there for Barkley this season. I mean, do you think that there's still time for him to turn it around? Is this just, hey, this is the volatility that you get? This is, it's a living and dying by the efficiency. This is what you get, or?
Yeah. So obviously the big thing that you had, I think I remember a lot of games for Saquon last year where you're going into the third quarter or the fourth quarter and he's gotten 15 carries for 45 yards, 3 yards per attempt. And then he breaks a 60-yard touchdown. And then, you're like, okay, he's having a decent day. And then it's like, oh, shit, he broke another 70-yard touchdown. And then it's like, that was the great Saquon Barkley week. And so we haven't gotten those long breakaway touchdowns. So I'm looking at it here. He's gotten 69 breakaway yards so far this year. He had last year he had and that's kind of carries that go beyond 15 yards. Last year he had 1,107 breakaway yards. So you're like halfway through. We're 7 games in, and he's what, like 120th. So
yeah, it's a pretty big difference.
That's what's driving the lack of efficiency. And then he has 14 forced missed tackles so far this year versus 80 last year. So he's not breaking tackles as frequently, and he's not making the big explosive runs when he does. How much of that is stuff that we can't see? Honestly, I don't know. But I agree. I tend to lean on what you said more, which is like, hey, this is a lot closer to what we got earlier in his career, or sorry, not earlier, later career Giants. So I'd probably ebb on the side of that this is the Saquon Barkley going forward than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to summarize it. The next note I had was, does anything change for Alvin Kamara here with the Kendre ACL tear? Kendre's was starting to eat into the rushing work a little bit for Kamara. Do you think this is a boost for Kamara, or do they now just involve Devin Neal or someone else more?
So I did see Devin Neal out there a lot. So Devin Neal in week 7, he was not out there a lot more. Devin Neal played 2 snaps in week 7. So did anybody else? So I guess that the question is, did anybody else play, or was it just the Alvin Kamara show? So I think it was just so Alvin Kamara played an 87% snap rate, and Devin Neal barely played. So they probably, I don't know, but I don't think it's Devin Neal time. Maybe we get that later in the year, but probably a massive boost to Alvin Kamara, where he goes from a 60-40 head of the committee guy to now he's a locked-in starter, is what I'd say.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Saints don't get a because I think that this is like a fleeting thing, right? Like they're not going to go out there and like load Kamara up every game for the rest of the season. You're probably going to get it for a little bit until someone can earn a little of that work back from him, right? But unfortunately, I don't really think we get a good opportunity to capitalize on that because his matchup this next week is against the Bucs, who have a very strong run defense. Although it didn't really seem to stop Jahmyr Gibbs. Granted, I do think there's a little bit of a difference between Jahmyr Gibbs and Alvin Kamara at this point in their careers.
Right.
And then after that, you get the Rams. So yeah, I don't think you. It seems difficult to actually capitalize on this opportunity. The other note that I had, where this could be one where we could possibly get ahead of a trend, Chase Brown, who previously on this show we had fully left for dead, finally has an efficient rushing day with the help of Joe Flacco opening up the offense a little bit more. Chase Brown goes for over 100 yards. Not a great fantasy day because it's just rushing yards. I don't think he logs a single reception. In fact, I believe, if I remember correctly, he had a pretty bad drop on one. So I think
4 targets.
Yeah, he has 0 receptions, though, correct?
So Joe Flacco tried to get him involved, but Chase Brown wasn't having it.
Yeah.
Is this? So, I mean, Chase Brown is fast, so it doesn't surprise me that you get some games where he has some explosive runs. And to me, it's like a question of like, how much do you buy into the Joe Flacco led resurgence? How much of it is like, I've seen this meme. It's not a meme, but like a commonly said thing on Twitter, where is the Steelers defense, the cover tree that they run, it hasn't changed in like 10 years, and like new rookies when they come in, they struggle against it, but the guys who have played against the same defense forever, they shred it, and that's what happened with Joe Flacco. I guess I kind of buy some of that. It makes sense to me. And then how much do you buy the Joe Flacco resurgence? I don't know. Like I think you'll probably get a lot closer to a league average offense than we were before, where it was just like completely dysfunctional, and now it might be somewhat functional. And so there's value in the offense again. Chase Brown has like what, 65% of the 1 second as I look this up. Like what was his share on Thursday night? So so he's like 60 to 65% of that. I have a somewhat functional offense. I mean, you're still like you're down really bad on your second 2-3 turn price. Like you're down really, really bad. Just because he's losing that receiving work to P. Ryan. And then it's like, like what you paid for was like one of the most efficient, productive offenses in the league. And they were like, well, it's going to be closer to league average than it's going to be the worst. I think you get more games like this from Chase Brown, where it's like semi-usable, and some will be usable than before. Whereas before it was like you're getting 5 points, like and you're gonna like you might cry, but like that's what you're gonna get. That's how I put it.
Yeah. P. Ryan gets 7 carries to Chase Brown's 11. So he's definitely still getting the majority of the rushing work, but P. Ryan has crept up a good bit there to where it's not just all the Chase Brown show. And then I pulled up the Bengals schedule here. They get the Jets next week, so that should be decent. Then they get the Bengals and they get the Bears and they're back to the Steelers again. Then it's Patriots who have a pretty tough run D. So yeah, I'm not feeling terribly bullish on Chase Brown going forward, but he's probably more usable than he was prior to the Joe Flacco acquisition. Okay, last running back chart note that I had. So we get DeAndre Swift continues to perform really well for the Bears. Bears running game is actually the thing that wins this game for them. Swift, super effective. Monangai also in the mix and pretty effective. And so that brings me to a rookie running back rest of season question. Would you rather have Kyle Monangai, RJ Harvey, or TreVeyon Henderson on a best ball team rest of season?
At this point, you probably prefer Monangai, like where he's got like a very real role. Like he had 13 rush attempts, he had a carry inside the 5, 2 targets. Like you'd be crying ugly tears if you got that game for TreVeyon Henderson going forward. Yeah,
no, I do think that rest of season Monangai probably carries more value. The ceiling for Monangai is obviously not so great.
Right. It's not very good at all.
It requires a Swift injury. He's not going to take the job from him. Swift has been playing well. And even then, like, he's still Kyle Monangai, so it's just like volume. But yeah, I just think that happens so much more often than RJ Harvey or TreVeyon Henderson becoming things. And that's not to say it's impossible. It's just it's gotten a lot less likely for those guys to do anything usable for fantasy football. You know, we're 7 weeks into the season. There's still a lot of season left. But I mean, TreVeyon Henderson's going backwards as far as his likelihood to break out. You know, it's been getting worse week over week the last few weeks. And then Harvey,
I had the big defense of him, and I still believe in a lot of that defense. But at a certain point, the coach's stubbornness to not play him, it kind of grinds you down.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this off air about TreVeyon Henderson, where we did think we both thought it was crazy that people were willing to write him off. I mean, like, he had fantasy analysts that were apologizing for recommending TreVeyon Henderson. They're like, "Oh, he's a bust. I'm sorry I ever recommended him." It's
right.
Like, that's crazy. Like, that's a little crazy. He was an incredible prospect profile. Gets great draft capital. Goes to a team with limited competition where you're expecting an improvement for the offense. Like, he was, fantastic process pick. And then also the season isn't over. We still have 11 weeks left in the NFL season. And so I said to you, I don't think he's a bust yet, but like my prior of TreVeyon Henderson being bad before the season was like, maybe there's a 10% chance that this guy's bad. Otherwise he's probably a useful NFL starter to potentially a very good NFL starter, 10% chance he's bad. Well, last week I said, I've certainly adjusted my prior now. Like, probability that he's actually bad is a lot higher. It's probably like all the way up to 20% now. Because if you have a prior, you don't just totally throw it out. You incorporate the new evidence that you have. You don't just say, well, TreVeyon Henderson has done nothing so far, so clearly he stinks. It's like, well, no, I had pretty good reason to believe that this guy is a good football player, was going blow for blow with Quinshon Judkins in college, who we've seen absolutely tear up the NFL. So, there's reason to believe he's good, but your confidence in him not being bad should be getting lower and lower each week. And I think that's kind of where, at least that's where I am. I think that's where you are now as well, where, now my probability that TreVeyon Henderson is bad is probably up to like 30%. And I don't think it can't really get much higher than 50%, because the profile is just so strong. Like it's pretty rare that a profile that's that strong would be bad.
What's changing for me is just I'm just learning a little bit more about Mike Vrabel, where you look at how he handled Derrick Henry, where he had Dion Lewis playing ahead of him, like deep into Derrick Henry's career, where like I don't know, like given what we know about Derrick Henry now, like that was just like unfathomable decision. How did it take them so long to play Derrick Henry? It's like with somebody's coaching profile being like that, it's kind of like well, there's a phrase like the market can be wrong longer than you can stay solvent, and it feels like Mike Vrabel can keep Henderson on the bench longer than I can stay patient. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I think that's well put. To put a cap on it, the Derrick Henry stuff. I don't know if you remember this, but around, I want to say it was like the year that he finally broke out. Like after that, he wrote. I think it was he wrote a Players Tribune article or some article came out where I believe it was Eric Dickerson had. I can't remember. I might be misattributing which NFL great running back talked to Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry talks to, I believe it's Eric Dickerson, and Eric Dickerson basically tells him like, dude, like this is it for you. You better, it's shit or get off the pot time. Like you have all of the tools that you need to be great, but you clearly are at fault for not being great to this point in your NFL career. Like there are things that you're not doing correctly. That is why you're not getting this opportunity. And Derrick Henry wrote that was like the motivation that he needed to turn it up to 11 and go crazy and finally break out. And that it did require additional work for him. And so I'm wondering, it's really easy to like hindsight be like, oh, Mike Vrabel, the idiot who didn't play Derrick Henry over Dion Lewis. What a rube. But I think it's probably that it was more of a, hey, it was just as much a Mike Vrabel problem as it was a Derrick Henry problem. Like Derrick Henry probably was also at fault for not getting played. And that's not to say that he couldn't have been great if he got his shit together sooner, but there probably were things that he wasn't doing well enough to earn that playing time. And I think that's the most likely explanation for TreVeyon Henderson, where he very much could be an incredible talent who should be able to succeed, like even right now, but he probably is not doing enough things well, or he's making enough mistakes. And some of it is stuff that's been pointed out by people that are grinding the film and saying, oh, look, he misses this assignment here, or, oh, like he doesn't read this run correctly. And, there's a big lane here and he just misses it. And some of that stuff just is evident when you watch him, like what's going on in this play, but I do think a lot of it is probably stuff where you need to be in the meeting room to actually know, where it's like, oh, it looked like he did well on this play. Like it looks like he, gets what's blocked for him, but actually like that wasn't what they wanted him to do, or they want him to execute slightly differently or what have you. Right. So I think there's enough that we just don't know, where it's hard to say, oh, it's all a player skill issue, or it's all, a coach being stubborn issue. I think it's probably a little bit of both. And as far as like how that's actionable for us going forward, I think there's a lot of volatility around the TreVeyon Henderson production because he's probably good. But he has to do something to actually be able to earn that opportunity to be good on an NFL field. So I think that's where I'm at with it. But I think we can move on from running backs to tight ends if you have.
The last thing I'm going to note is that Vidal has had like a complete like workhorse profile, where he's not complete. He's like 70% of the snaps in the last 2 weeks. He's getting like around 70%.
Part of that was the Haskins injury this last week, by the way.
Oh, true. But he was active this week, right?
Yes, but he got injured. So Haskins missed.
Maybe they're nursing Haskins.
Yeah, they've already ruled Haskins out for Thursday as well. So
okay.
Well,
I guess Haskins is out.
Yeah, Vidal should have a massive workload on Thursday. Wouldn't at all surprise me if there's a new face in the Chargers running back room, 2 weeks from now, because I don't think that they're already thin. I think they probably need someone else, and they've already expressed that they want to add someone. I think that the injury to Haskins is probably a catalyst that they need to just go pull the trigger on something. So good. I think a good spot for Kamani Vidal this week, because there should just
come
be
out
no
of
competition.
the week 6 game, Haskins?
I thought he missed some snaps.
Okay. Because Vidal dominated that game too.
Yeah, let me look here. Yeah, he had decent snap count. I can't easily see if he left the game here, but his snap count was decent. But yeah, I mean, Vidal seems like a great spot for Thursday night. He should have it all to himself. I thought your Brashard Smith note was actually really good. You mentioned he's got 9 targets in the last 2 weeks. A bunch of the carries came in garbage time. So
yeah, I don't know how much to read into the carries.
Yeah, I don't want people to detract from the role, though, and say, oh, it was all garbage time. Like, all the receiving work was when the game the game was never competitive, but all the receiving work was with the starters, is what I'm trying to. So I think the Brashard Smith stuff has signal for sure.
And they were happy to go to him when Kareem Hunt came out for a couple of plays as well.
Yeah,
I think he had a couple of carries down too.
He's really exciting down the stretch. Not someone that I think you can really plug in and start just yet, but he's definitely a stash. He's like a high priority stash on your bench.
Yeah. And I have to start him this week with injuries, and the week 8 are by McGetting. I don't know if that's if that's recommended by everybody, but I think that there's worse desperation starts. Is how I put it.
All right, a lot of tight ends here.
We're moving on to tight ends. So the note I had on McBride was still like, hey, they ran 140 plays. That Brissett is playing insane. So obviously the McBride output the last 2 weeks has been fantastic. It's probably not going to sustain at 25 to 30 tight end premium points a game, but I think you're seeing very clear signs of separation there, where he is starting the gap in terms of targets. He is starting the gap in terms of air yards on the season, because even though there are some players that will kind of keep touch with him for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. Over the full season, not a hope.
Yeah, no, McBride. It turns out Kyler Murray was the problem all along. You just needed Jacoby Brissett to unlock him, because this looks like last year Trey McBride now. Where he's just absolutely target dominant. I mean, he already was target dominant. The production just wasn't really coming that much. Right. But yeah, you did note that the really high play count may have something to do with it, but. It is nice to see him being very productive finally, and hopefully the Brissett can continue starting and keep that rolling, because I'm legitimately concerned that if Kyler comes back, we see it come back down to earth. The other guy that I think is pretty exciting from a tight end standpoint, you get the huge Oronde Gadsden breakout, and we've got to give you your flowers, because you were on this a couple weeks ago, and I was a little hesitant. I wasn't sure if I bought it. And then after the show, I looked into it more, drafted him a bunch in the dog bowl. And he was absolutely the tight end to pick for the dog bowl. Unfortunately, couldn't get any through there, but Gadsden was a great shout. He looks like he's just fully broken out at this point. This is a toothpaste out of the tube moment for Oronde Gadsden, right?
Yeah, definitely one of my best stat tracing calls ever. Feel good about that one. Where, hey, he's just going to run 80% of Herbert's routes consistently. He's getting a 19 to 20% targets per run, 11-yard ADOT at tight end. This could like he's like one of those like he's a move tight end, so I don't know what he offers like blocking or anything like that. So this could just totally be the 1 year flash in the pan for Gadsden. But what a great flash in the pan it is if that's the case.
Yeah, I mentioned this when we talked about Herbert, but basically all of the Chargers pass catchers have pretty similar targets per route run. They're all within a couple percent, 1-2% of each other.
They're all like at basically 20.
All at 20, yeah. So it's just, hey, there will be weeks. The Chargers are like the if we're doing like NFL team archetypes for like what their weapons are for fantasy, the Packers are the Charmander to the Chargers Charizard as far as pass catchers, because the Packers, it's like, oh, I can't start any of these guys in managed leagues, but they're okay for best ball because they're kind of underpriced for being a good offense. The Chargers are that, like, think about the Chargers pass catchers from a best ball standpoint, like Keenan Allen, huge win. QJ, huge win. Oronde Gadsden, massive win, right? Like all of those. We won't talk about Lad McConkey, but all of those other guys, just enormous wins. And so basically,
it's kind of wild. 4 guys at 20% target per run.
Yeah. I mean, from a weekly standpoint, I think that this is an awesome offense to attack for DFS purposes, just because there's a lot of volatility with who is the guy in that week. And I think that probably like incorrectly scares people away. People who are just playing one lineup or hand building, like it's going to be hard to want to click a Chargers pass catcher because you don't really know who it's going to be. And that's a good thing. Like it's good that there's ambiguity there because you can play them at discounted ownership and the pricing is probably not going to be efficient. They probably all end up underpriced. I would assume this is the case in BRs especially, or you end up with one, like for example, Lad has just been kind of consistently priced up as like the first guy to go, or like if not the first guy, like kind of has gone right in line with QJ in previous weeks. And so I think you probably just end up with a phenomenon where the first Chargers pass catcher to go is overpriced, and then all the other ones are underpriced, and you can just print money because the market is going to do a bad job at understanding how that ambiguity works and like what the range of outcomes is for all of these pass catchers. So I think that's pretty interesting going forward. And basically we're saying Oronde Gadsden is just as good a bet as Lad McConkey or Keenan Allen or Quentin Johnston to lead the Chargers in fantasy points for a week, which is pretty good for a tight end. So very, very big signal from Gadsden here. If you have fab left, he's like all your fab kind of player, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%. 100%. It is it's certainly a year for rookie tight ends.
Yeah.
Where then you have Tyler Warren, obviously great. I do think Loveland might end up being a sneaky good second half of the year play, where you have the Komet injury last week coming out of the bye. They have 24% targets per run for Loveland, probably massively helped by the Komet injury, but he did have a 63% route rate. So that's certainly how do I say it? That's certainly trending up. And then I think the non-Fannin drafters got up pretty lightly last week, where Fannin was able to get 90% of the routes. Sorry, 87% of the routes, and then a 25% target per run. But they only had 18 dropbacks because in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah, and it's weird too. They passed more when they were ahead, which is very strange. Like after they were putting the game away, they actually passed more. So I don't know, but yes, Fannin could have been set up for a monster week as far as opportunity, but the game environment did not help that to bear out in the way that we had hoped. Other tight end notes that I had. The Jake Ferguson sell high window is still open because he got 2 touchdowns this week. I think that there's 2 ways to play this. If you're in a league where you can trade him, you can sell Jake Ferguson, but it's truly a sell high. Like, you're not selling for anything. It's not a sell for whatever you get, which I feel like is a really, whenever someone who is asking me for random home league advice is asking about trades, I feel like 90% of the time they send me a trade and they say, what do you think of this? Like, should I do this? I really want to sell player X. And almost every time it's like, oh yeah, I really wanted to sell Nico Collins for, Cortland Sutton or something, or like, oh, I'm selling Nico Collins for Ricky Pearsall for when he comes back. And it's like, okay, just because Nico has not had a good start to the season, like, it's not a sell at all costs. It's not a sell for pennies on the dollar type situation. It's a sell high. Sell if you can get someone to pay a good price for this. So that's where I feel like Jake Ferguson is, because if you're stuck holding Jake Ferguson, it's like, oh no, I have this dump off artist on a team that likes to target him in the red zone, and they happen to score a ton of touchdowns and be probably the best offense in football as far as fantasy is concerned. Like, whatever will I do with Jake Ferguson? So you're not compelled to sell him, but you probably could get more than he is worth. So that was the Jake Ferguson note I had.
He had 7 targets and still 26% at yards per run, even with CD Lamb back.
And how many yards?
He only had 7 air yards.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, how many yards in those 7 targets? Yeah, it was not a lot. So yeah,
he is truly the dump off. But in tight end premium, that is helpful.
The last random little note here: Dalton Schultz has actually been a lot better lately. It wasn't just the Christian Kirk injury this game. He had been better the previous game. He's getting more involved. Not terribly exciting because that offense seems really bad. Offensive line is atrocious. I saw some people saying like, "Oh gosh, the Texans are going to be so much better when they get a real quarterback." Like, dude, so irritating to see comments like that, because that is just like very clear I didn't watch any of the game type conversation. CJ Stroud has a guy literally in his lap half a second after every snap, man. I don't know what you want him to do. Like, there's nothing to be done as the quarterback on the Houston Texans. Like, you are getting just relentlessly pressured. There's no room to work. So
right, they couldn't even run on like the clear running situations where it's like, okay, the offense, the defense can stop you from doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it's an offensive line in name only. They don't actually do any of the things you'd expect an offensive line to do, like buy time for you to set up a pass play or, create yards before contact in the rushing game. Like, none of that actually happens. It's just there's 5 guys out here that are getting paid a combined, tens of millions of dollars to, stand to the side and let defensive players pad their stats every game. All right, that's enough of my tirade on the Texans offensive line. The last tight end note I had, I think this tight end is actually on the backups page, and it is fitting for us to discuss him with the backups chart visible. Evan Engram, you might look at that targets per route run and be like, wow, well, he's not running a ton of routes, but shoot, 22% TPRR. I look at the game log, guy's getting like 8 targets a game. He's getting some receptions. Like, this could be something. Let me be the first to tell you, as a former Evan Engram Bull, it's joever. If you didn't watch this game, I'm sorry that I'm giving you this homework assignment, because the first 3 quarters of this game are truly, truly unwatchable. But you're going to need to do it. You're going to need to go watch, and I want you to watch the Evan Engram receptions. And when you get to the one I'm talking about, you're going to know, because he catches a pass. And if you've ever, if you run, if you go out there, you get your jogs in, you're active out there, you got your music playing in your headphones and a good song comes on and you're like, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open up, the engine to this one. We're going to kick it into high gear. You kind of like put your head down, you just start chugging, you're just zooming, Evan Engram had that moment on Sunday where he catches a pass and you can see him. He's feeling himself. He's like, oh, look at the Joker's about to get loose, baby. It's time for some serious yak ability. He puts his head down, and you can see him turn the gear up from first to second gear. There's no gear change whatsoever. All that happened was his head just went down, and he's moving at the exact same speed. There's zero acceleration. It's depressing. Like with a lot of NFL players, you can see the gear change on a guy where it's like, oh, I was running and now I'm running. And there's only one gear left for Evan Engram, and it's slow. So he'll probably keep getting these little rinky-dink targets, but they are the classic Evan Engram scam targets. And the reason that I brought up the just terrible optics of his yak attempt there is the ceiling is very much capped, because Evan Engram cannot do there will not be an Evan Engram long touchdown, because he will get caught from behind. That's just not a thing that can happen at this point. Your longest touchdown you're going to get is 30 yards because of a busted coverage, and he catches the ball 15 yards downfield, which again, that's not where he's even operating. So you're shit out of luck if you're hoping for an Evan Engram splash play. Anyway, had to share that. It was too funny not to after watching him play on Sunday.
Or IP. So moving on to the receivers. And so your first note was about Brian Thomas.
Yeah. I feel like our shows are very much centered around the stats, where we are digging through all of these advanced metrics and trying to give you actionable takeaways or point out trends, early in the cycle, so that we can find advantages in these fantasy games that we're playing. But I do really think that a big part of the value that we can add to this is, let's also add the context of watching how the accumulation of these stats occurred. And for Brian Thomas, I have noticed the entire season, he's been really hesitant to catch the ball in traffic. He's had a lot of bad drops where he's going across the middle and seems to pull up, or he looks like he doesn't want to get hit. And there have been people that have talked about this. I'm not the first person to bring this up, but I've been noticing it as well. This week is the first week where I feel like we got irrefutable evidence, absolute confirmation he is playing injured. His shoulder is super injured. I would not be surprised at all if at the end of this season we get a report that Brian Thomas Jr. was playing through a torn labrum, or Brian Thomas Jr. is playing through an AC joint sprain all season, and now he's having surgery. Or if the Jags end up out of the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised to see Brian Thomas get shut down and have season-ending surgery. The reason I say that is all of the evidence in the previous weeks where he's really hesitant to go across the middle, really hesitant to catch the ball in traffic, bad drops. This week, same thing, but he has a play where a defender touches his shoulder. I'm not talking he made big contact, he got smashed. A defender literally just puts his hand on his shoulder. No force exertion whatsoever. He just touches him. And Brian Thomas Jr. winces. He recoils in pain from just this light touch to his shoulder. And the announcers brought it up too, oh wow, he really, acted like he'd been shot there. So there's something not right with him. It's not been widely reported though. This is your sell window on Brian Thomas. He's had enough. He's done enough lately where he had couple bad games to start the season. He has a good game a couple weeks ago. This is your sell window. Get out right now. He's playing injured. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he's shut down at some point this season, or if it gets re-aggravated. He's not right. This is not the Brian Thomas that you thought you were drafting. This guy's playing with an injury that hasn't gone reported. And I would bet you dollars to donuts on that.
Yeah. I'm always very vigilant to the hidden injuries, but that does seem pretty clear where he's at. Like you said, he's not right.
Yeah. Okay, the next guy I wanted to bring up. So we've seen Rome Odunze kind of consistently regress on this chart, where he was farther up and to the right. He has a couple games without touchdowns now, and he's beginning to regress. I wanted to get your take on this where he previously was, where he's like just below CD and, he's to the right of Pickens and, like below that elite tier of Chase, Amon-Ra, CD previously. Now he's trending towards the middle of the chart. Is that just like the pendulum range on Rome Odunze, where the previous point was like the high water mark for what we'd expect from like a small sample efficiency for him, and then now we're kind of near the low water mark? Or are we still in that like backswing of the pendulum? Is there still farther for him to slide? Where do you think like his baseline level of production should be?
So he had some run bad, didn't he, in week 5 or week 6 it was, where he caught a touchdown. And then it was a formational penalty on the offensive line. And so it didn't count. The one thing that's clear is that he has a really high ADOT. It's like, if I look at the game log here, it's 13.8, 21.4, 14.3 in the last couple of weeks. So your air yards are really strong. The target count is actually pretty good too, but you are going to have some volatility in your fantasy points, especially when kind of touchdowns get wiped off the board. The game that I thought I saw that the New Orleans Chicago game actually had worse weather than the Dolphins Browns game. I thought the wind. Maybe the rain wasn't as bad, but the wind was like even faster. I think I saw that. And so to answer your question, I think I'd put him. I'm trying to find where he is on the Rome Odunze.
He's like next to Pittman and Flowers and Metcalf.
I think I'd maybe. I think where he is right there is probably good.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. I don't think, number one, I would expect that we see Justin Jefferson have a little bit better efficiency as the season progresses, and maybe he gets more consistent quarterback play. That also might just be a pipe dream. Maybe the more efficient quarterback play isn't coming. But yeah, I think for all the complaining I did about Caleb, where he has really long time to throw and he's got all these turnover worthy plays. Yeah, that's because he's extending the play to throw super far downfield to Rome Odunze. So for all the bad that I can point out about Caleb, Rome Odunze is the direct benefactor of the good that comes with that bad. So I think that the way to play that two-player relationship is you'd much prefer to be on the Rome Odunze side, where you can just get the ceiling outcomes, and then if he busts, it's whatever. Where Caleb, the opportunity cost of a quarterback busting is a lot higher than the opportunity cost of a wide receiver busting. You're going to get points from basically any quarterback. But so, yeah, I think Odunze is probably right around where his home will be on the chart there. He definitely has run bad in the recent games, but he was also nuclear sun running to start the season. So as we get more data,
right, it averages out.
They do kind of average out. Okay. The next notes I had for wide receiver were on the next chart. Did you have anyone else on this chart you wanted to talk about?
No. No, I don't know if you wanted to gyrate over Jameson Williams' corpse a little bit, but
I think the JMO drafters have had enough. I mean, it's not often that I take the high road and I don't, victory lap a player that I was fading. But I've gotten plenty wrong myself this season, so we can leave the Jameson Williams drafters alone. We don't need to kick them while they're down.
And so, yeah, I think we already. You had a note here about Keenan Allen, where he had a really nice game.
Yeah, it's just the Chargers. Involved. Yeah.
Where he's like 70 to 80% route run, 20% targets per run, and you're just gonna get the good spike games like that.
Yeah, it's just, hey, of all the Chargers, one of them will probably be really good for fantasy every week, or at the very least, or they're all usable, I do think Gadsden getting involved just makes it slightly more annoying for everyone, for Keenan, for QJ, for Ladd, right? It's one more guy that, really I don't know that their target share is falling all that much. It's just that Gadsden is consolidating like the scraps that were around. Right now, it's just like, hey, here's 4 guys, and it goes through them. Where before it was like, okay, it's Keenan, Ladd, and QJ, and then the running backs get some, and then a couple tight ends get targets, and we'll get KLS involved, and we'll get Trey Harris involved. It's mostly like these 4 guys now, and then the other guys pick up the scraps, but the scraps have consolidated among these 4 guys.
It's so tilting that Troy Franklin had 172 air yards and only 19 real yards. That's
a lot of it is like they were not the highest quality air yards from Bo Nix. There's some that is Troy Franklin's fault, to be very clear. It's also, if we're converting those air yards to like, how many of those are like real, it's like 100, so
still I'm just saying his usage profile is so fantastic.
Yeah,
we haven't seen the true smash game.
We can take our victory lap on Troy Franklin being the Broncos receiver to draft. It was definitely not Marvin Mims.
Right.
That's always nice to be right. It just like Juwan Jennings was also a great pick. If only he didn't break 5 of his ribs, sprain his ankle. The process picks are going crazy. Unfortunately, the results are not as crazy for some of them. So.
But Troy Franklin, he's probably another one where he's a good dog bowl pick, right? With all the buys, like if you're gonna get him, you probably get him in the 6th round at no ownership.
Maybe
I know it's 10. It's 10. Maybe he's just like too far down.
I haven't really looked at the slate this week. Yeah, he's probably fine. He's like a mix it in kind of guy, not someone that's like a staple by any means. You can for guys that are, if you're on this chart and you're to the right of the median weighted targets per route run, and you're in that upper right quadrant where you've been able to be efficient with your opportunity, you're probably someone that can be picked in the last round of the dog bowl. That's just obviously some of these guys like Nico Collins, Keenan Allen, Puka, like those are well-done picks, but you get to like the Travis Hunter, Troy Franklin,
Puka Nacua smash in the 6th round of the dog bowl.
But like Shaheed, Kendrick Bourne, Travis Hunter, Troy Franklin, Keon Cole, all those guys are like, yeah, that's like I could take that in the 6th round. You'd be surprised how shitty the players are that you could reasonably draft in the 6th round there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Once you get like your what? What is it? It's 6 rounds, 10. So it's 12 teams. So and 24. You're on like wide receiver, what, 26 through 30 or something like that.
Yeah. That's who these guys are.
The other one, it was nice to see Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
He finally had his breakout game.
Drico, there's only so many times you can throw the ball to Parker Washington without just getting absolutely fed up. Like, you know what, Travis, you just need to play more offense, my guy.
And then I saw there was a comment that he only played in 11 personnel. So what's interesting there is that he did have 27 snaps out wide. He did play 40 snaps in slot, so he was predominantly slot, but certainly not slot only. And hopefully he can continue to have that kind of like, was it 89% route rate? He did have 86% in the prior week. So hopefully that can sustain, and they have realized that good things happen when you throw them the ball.
I think it has to, man. I think this is the start of the Travis Hunter breakout. I mean, I said the Parker Washington thing like kind of jokingly, but I'm dead serious. If you watch this game, which I was stupid enough to wake up at 6:30 a.m. on the West Coast to watch it, what are the Jaguars doing on offense? Like there is so much Parker Washington targets. Like it's not
crazy. It was like all over the field. It was end arounds. It was screens.
Dude. Oh, don't
it
even
was
say
crosser routes deep down the field.
If you say Parker Washington end around one more time, I might freak out. It might trigger some post-traumatic stress disorder because, dude, the Parker Washington end arounds on like third and short or the fourth, just they gotta have it plays, and they're like, you know what, the best thing in our playbook is right here, Parker Washington end around. Like, I'm gonna walk into traffic if the Jags keep doing that every week. It's so the offense is just too bad to not, like, they have to do something. And this guy's electric with the ball in his hands, and he can make plays down the field. Like, and also Brian Thomas Jr. is injured. Like, I would not be surprised if Travis Hunter is the top scoring receiver on this team by the end of the season. Like, the path is very clear. It's wheels up. Honestly, this is probably the like trend to get ahead of. Like, of all the things that we've talked about, like the thing that'll fly under the radar the most is this. Number one, because even though it's an island game, it's in London, so you'd have to wake up early to watch it on the West Coast, right? And a lot of people aren't watching the London game. You also have all of the previous weeks where he's underwhelming, and the like fantasy community consensus was he was supposed to be so good. He underwhelms to start, and so he just kind of like stays disappointing. I think
people are just afraid that he's going to go back to cornerback and never do this again.
Yeah, I think this is the spot to attack. You just play it like the breakout just happened, and you just lean into that, and you just hope going forward that is what happens. I'm pulling up their schedule here. I want to see. Oh no, man, no. Well, they get the Texans in 2 weeks. They've got their bye, obviously. You get the Raiders the first game out of the bye. So that's probably the spot to attack. Honestly, coming off the bye too, like it's extra time for this Travis Hunter game to fade from people's memory. So just catalog this away, file it away in the old noggin. Travis Hunter against the Raiders. That's the spot.
That's the next spot to attack. And then moving to the last chart. I think it's so funny how like all the other charts can handle being broken by the likes of Puka Nacua. The shitter chart really cannot handle being broken by Rashee Rice.
Yeah, Rashee will hopefully get up to the next tier of chart after another week, but very funny to see him here with 90% weighted targets per route run. Just, hey, Drico, do you think that they want to involve Rashee in the offense?
Yeah, I want to be kind, but Rashee is obviously he's their guy. He's the one that is going to make. He's the straw. Well, Mahomes is the straw that serves the drink, but he's the simple syrup.
Yeah, no, Rashee is gonna smash going forward. We talked about this in our rankings chat where we were saying, Rashee Rice or Puka Nacua straight up rest of the season, and I believe all of us fell on the Rashee Rice side or on the Puka Nacua side, except for you, Drico, who did think that Rashee could give him.
I thought it'd be close.
Yeah. I do think I still like
feels that way.
I like the Puka side still, but Rashee is going to be, top 5 fantasy receiver going forward the rest of the way. The disappointing.
Kyle was the one who made the point where, like, for that to be true, Rashee would have to have one of the best per game fantasy years ever, and my reaction was like, Yeah, no, I mean that certainly feels like what we are set up for right here.
You can definitely see how a disappointing game can be in the hopper where pretend he gets 12 targets and they go for 7 receptions for 60 yards and no scores, right? That's going to be the week where the Rashee faders come out of the woodwork to victory lap. See, it's just PPR scam. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he doesn't do anything. And I don't think that those will be the norm, but I can definitely put those squarely in the range with how he's getting deployed and also how dominant the Chiefs can be, where they just may not have to use him very much in these uncompetitive games. But I think that
I don't think he's gonna have a game with a catch rate that low. But I could see it being one where I can see what you're saying, where like the receptions are in check and the yardage is low because the ADOT is low, and he doesn't happen to score a touchdown.
Yeah, by the time we get to the fantasy playoffs, I think the receivers that I will be most excited to see on my team are going to be Puka, CD, JSN, Rashee Rice. And I think it's in that order. And, I think I'd prefer to have Rashee Rice over Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. And pretty sure that's where it's at. You probably, Amon-Ra maybe is in there right around Rashee or ahead of Rashee.
Zay Flowers too, probably. By playoff time.
Yeah, by playoff time, I certainly could see Flowers. Flowers is probably in there with the, God, if the Vikings don't figure out their quarterback stuff, it might be Zay Flowers versus Justin Jefferson, straight up. Could be a very, very real.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson seems like such a cool guy as well, so that makes me sad.
Yeah, it does make me sad. Jets is very good at the game, and it's just a bummer to see him stuck in quarterback purgatory. He still had a solid game this week. It's just you just know that there's so much more, which is what makes it sad. But anyway, I think that's everything to cover on the wide receiver charts. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No.
Okay.
You're gonna sneak in a sermon at the end of the 2-hour podcast. I want to talk to everybody about my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Well, I think with that,
if you made it this far, you are truly one of the devoted.
I think with that, it's time to end it. But thank you all for joining us here for week 7. We will see you again next week, Tuesday, same time as usual. Good luck this week, everybody.
See you next week, everybody.